Fancy editing in DaVinci Resolve, but don't know how to use it? Similar boat. I've probably used it about twice. I have edited on Final Cut, but on this one, I'm going to force myself to learn this program after it's been stuck on the machine for about 6 years. I'm going to actually take you to Hollywood so you can actually find out about this program. Normally, if you start a new job, they'll tell you where the toilets are. They'll tell you the best place to park your car. They may even give you a hint of where the nearest takeaways are if you want something for lunch. In DaVinci Resolve, you need to know those things, ideally, so you can understand the program. So let's go to Hollywood. So when you first open the interface, you'll see there's an awful lot to it. That's because it would traditionally be equivalent to 7 people's jobs or even more. There's 7 distinct areas to the software. That's why you're going to need a reasonably good computer to run it. So let's move through the different areas of DaVinci Resolve. The first tab, which we're on at the moment, is the media page. That's this one here. Again, all the tabs are accessible down the bottom, and you don't have to use all of these to actually be able to function. The media page, and we see smart bins. Back in the day, media, we're going back to Hollywood, the film would be processed, generally through chemicals, and then it would be hanged out to dry, potentially over a bin. The idea was that if anything fell, it would fall into the bin. So the same process, your media is moved into bins, so it's easier to find. This is a hangover back from the Hollywood days. Let's move to the cut page, this page here. The idea of the cut page, if you imagine, does it make the cut? So if you've got your bit of film, is it going to make the cut? Particularly useful for performing quick, rough edits ready for your editor. Now, if you're doing it, you can actually do an awful lot of processing within this page. But the idea of that, the page is all your information, your videos can be compiled as a rough cut. This makes performing the edit an awful lot quicker, and then it can be passed on to the editor. So again, there's different roles. 9 out of 10, we're probably doing an awful lot of work in this tab here. The next tab is the edit tab. Now, back in the day, once they've had all their strips of films, they would put 2 bits of film together and sellotape them, and that would make that edit. Here, you may have made your cuts in the cut tab, and then you come here to do the final finessing. You can move straight into the edit tab. Basically, this is where the end polish is done. The next tab is fusion. This is where VFX artists would create special effects. Back in the day, the way that was done is they may have filmed 2 or 3 different bits of film, maybe a crowd running, maybe a gorilla in the foreground or the background, and then people run into it. This is where things are fused together. Now here you can make fancy titles, balloons popping up, fire, but this is for special effects. So now moving over to the color tab. Professional colorists use this in Hollywood today. This one's a weird one because we're doing black and white and I'm talking about color, so we're going to stick with color on this one. Professional colorist and color correction. So here, or color grading, it's director or the producers, they have an idea of they want that film to look a kind of bluey orange color, and that could be done within this. Hollywood uses day in, day out. Color correction, if you film something and you've got the wrong white balance and the film looks, or your footage looks very orange, you can actually bring it in here and correct it. Now, you don't have to bring it in specially, you can just take the clip and process it. Well, Fairlight is the audio, the desktop audio workstation. This is fully blown. There's nothing this can't do audio-wise. I've edited podcasts and that. Anything you would expect to do on a standalone audio processor, it's equivalent to that. If you've seen those big wide desks, you can do all of that within here, adding filters, sweeten up sounds. Moving on to what is, once you've gone through the process. Now, as I said, you don't have to use all the tabs. You may have brought a short clip in, put it in the editor, job done. So you'll click that. Once you've done, you can come, choose where your output's going to go, and then it'll be delivered. Same as what they used to do in Hollywood. Once all the film's been processed, edited, they would be put into reels, into cans, and they would go on back of a truck and they would take them to the cinema. So that was the delivery process. The same thing here. Now we know all how the bottom tabs work. Let's jump back to some of the key settings, as in where the toilet is. You can process your video. Let's go and find the settings. These are different settings where you can, as you said, preset. So when you bring in media, stuff is behaving how you want it to, or if you're editing or making cuts and you think that's not how I want it, you'll have a rough idea of where to go. When you first launch DaVinci Resolve, you're presented with a screen where your projects are. So on the left hand side, you've got your libraries, and you can add new project libraries. I haven't done this myself. My understanding of it is if you add, say, different brands, say you would have different bulbs, logos, maybe lower thirds, you could potentially have them within that project library, because there's something I believe called favorites. So all of those assets can be favorited. Each individual project you do within that project library, you could use those assets. So if you're making YouTube videos on a weekly basis for one brand and you're making them a few for the other, you could have two different project libraries, and the assets or the reusable assets could be managed under that. That's where I believe. So the projects themselves, that is this screen here, they'll all be under here. Generally, you'll just see the untitled project. We're not going to create a project on this one. We'll do that on the next video. I just want to go through all the relevant settings to actually make sure that's successful. So let's go on launch day 1. So once you're in the screen, you've got a couple of options down the bottom here. You'll see we have the project manager home, and then we've also got project settings. So if you want to see your projects, if we go and press project home, that'll take us to that screen which comes up when we launch, and then we can easily switch between projects. If I double click that, I'll change project. Make sure it would probably prompt you that you haven't saved. Now the cog itself, that's tied to that project, so we won't go into too much detail on this, or we won't go into any details. You click that and you can change the settings or check your settings for that particular project you're working on at that moment. So I'll cancel that. Now let's go to preferences. That's where the bulk of the settings is for the software itself. So if we go to the top, DaVinci Resolve at the top, go to preferences, load up this. Now most of these I'm just going to leave. We'll go deeper into these if and when we need to. A couple of the main ones might be storage. So you can choose where you want storage. Decode, if you've got the pro version, might be able to change options here. Video, if you're going to set a default microphone for voiceover, so you can set that there. If you don't set it yet, don't worry, you can do it as you creating your voiceovers, and I'll cover that in a future video. Video plugins, not going to look at it. VSTs, this is for the audio side of things. So if you want to use different compressors and different limiters, if none of that makes sense, don't worry about it, but you can control it from here. We'll cover that in a video later in this training course. And these are the VSTs, control panel, general. Yeah, so this one might be of interest. This is the internet accounts. So you can actually, if you do have a cloud subscription with Blackmagic, you can sign in there. The YouTube, you can sign in there, and these platforms as well. The idea is that once you've finished at the delivery page, you can actually send it to these relevant locations. I just generally create it as a normal file and do this manually. So that's the system. This is the user. Let's go to the user tab. That's up there. So the user tab, you can decide what you want your UI to look like. I'm going to leave that as default. Project, loads and save. Load all timelines when opening projects. Again, that's up to you. I haven't tried that. Will that impact your computer resources? I'm going to leave that unselected. I can't remember if this comes as default. So live save. So it's progressively saving in the background. Let's select that. I believe the way that works is, when I was looking through some of the documentation, the project backups, if you imagine the rollback on a window or a time machine on the Apple, you can then decide how often you want that project backup to be. So here it could be every 10 minutes. So if you make an almighty glorious F up, you'll be able to go, and for some reason everything's knackered and you've ruined everything, and Control Z isn't going to get you enough back. You can go back to a backup from 10 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago, because it's going to do it every 10. Then you've got hourly backups. So again, depending your storage, your resources. You can decide what you're doing there. I'm not sure if that's fairly new. Anyway, live save, well worth having it on. Project backups. Yeah, I'll turn that on. Can't say I've seen that one before. So turn that on. Caching. Delete cache every 30 days. Now, I haven't used this a lot previously, so I don't know how much hard drive space this is going to consume in caching. So I'm just going to leave it as it is. If I notice that my hard drive is swelling up with DaVinci Resolve cache files, I'll come back and select that. The edit screen, that's quite interesting. There's a couple of things here. You might be wondering, why doesn't it start at 0, 0? The idea of that, it goes back to film projection and also TV, where after the product, the film, the TV program, whatever was ready, they would put things before it, a test card, maybe a countdown. We wouldn't see it, but the person in the TV studio or the cinema would see that there's 2 minutes before it starts, there's 1 minute before it starts, and they would see a clock and a countdown. So that's what you can change it. I think I changed it on the Mac. I'll probably keep it as normal so everybody's the same. Number of video tracks. When you start a project, by default, how many video tracks do you generally need? Do you need 1 or 2? You can add more if you need it, but you might want it to start all the time with 2, and your audio tracks all the time with 2. How does the audio? Is it stereo? Smart bins. This one here, definitely turn on. I'll explain why when we get further into the video, but definitely turn that on. So I'll turn that. Automatically bins. If you've got people in, shots in, you can turn these on. We'll leave it as at the moment. Again, you can change it if need be. If I'm doing projects where I feel I need it, I'll change it. But definitely turn on smart bins. There is some benefits for that. If we scroll down, you can choose the default fades. So as you cut from one scene to another, these are default fades and how they work. So I'll leave them as default. But if you want to play around, have a play. Just see, make a note of what you've done. Color. I presume this is color space and stuff like that. Ripple mode. I'm going to leave this because I don't know about it yet. Fairlight, this is going to be the audio side. Monitoring, I'm going to leave that as is. As is. Control panel. DaVinci trackball, I think. No, that's all. Metadata. Oh, I did have a play earlier. Looks like you can add and play with metadata. We'll look at this at a future video, but this is not needed at the moment. And once you've made all your changes, click save. And that's it. You've set up DaVinci Resolve how you want it. Again, you might come back at a later date, tweak things. I haven't gone through it, and it doesn't involve this software. There's a sister application. So there is tools or kit that you can use with DaVinci Resolve, things like the speed editor. Again, I will not be using that, certainly in the next 30 videos. Or you can even, the small one or the big one, you can use things like Stream Decks and then have shortcuts to these buttons. But again, we won't be using them, or I won't be using them in these trainings. So that's the settings and the different pages. The next video, we're going to actually import media and cover those settings, and we'll create some media bins. That's why we use that smart bin, and I'll show you the benefits of that in the next video.